everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, because we are a very
Yeah,
geographically
it's
diverse
good.
crowd here. Yeah, I'm feeling great. This is going to be such a nice thing to do, uh, traveling with you down this brick road, and hopefully you'll know a bit about Salesforce development and you have enough tools to proceed in learning how to develop for Salesforce platforms.
Great. So I will mute myself. Louis, stage is only yours.
Thank you once again, and let me share the presentation with you by now. Here it is. You'll probably see it in your browser window right now. So this is episode 1. The next 2 episodes are going to be aired at this time during the next 2 weeks on Tuesday. So the link for those other sessions will be published shortly in our LinkedIn page and our social media. First of all, Ascendix Technologies has been founded in 1996 by Wes and Todd, who you can see in the picture here. The headquarters is in Dallas, Texas. Since then, the company has helped several other companies to automate business processes and implement CRM systems. It's been a long road for us for over 20 years. The services that Ascendix provides for companies big and small have a wide range from CRM health check, implementation, integration, development to data migration, support, and customization. By numbers, we have over 25 years in custom development, over 17 products and apps, over 200 highly experienced employees. This number is growing every day. We have several positions open, so I invite you to go to our LinkedIn page and have a look at what we've got here. We are also certified both by Microsoft and by Salesforce as partners. And that's myself. I'm 29. I was born in São Paulo. I've lived there for the better part of my life, but I've been living here in Porto for the past year and a half. I'm graduated in system analysis and development. I've spent the past 8 years in the Salesforce ecosystem, holding multiple positions at world-class companies as analyst, as a consultant, and as a developer. I have joined Ascendix in November 2021 as a lead consultant and the first employee here in Portugal. Before we go into what's a program, I'd like to know some things from you. First is, where is it? Here it is. Were you interested in programming before? So before being invited to this session, have you had any interest in developing for either Salesforce platforms or anyone? So let's see what we've got here. Yeah, I can see that most of you, over 80%, over 85%, have had interest in programming before. So let's move forward. First of all, for those of you who have never programmed, what is a program anyway? So first of all, it's a sequence of actions. It's written in a programming language that a computer can understand. So it's not written in natural English or Portuguese or Russian or Ukrainian or any other language. It's written in a specific language that the computer knows all about. So it's either Java, JavaScript, C++, Visual Basic, Scala, Go, and there are perhaps thousands of other languages in the market today. They are executed by a computer, of course, or an array of computers like we have in Salesforce. Like you know, Salesforce runs in the cloud, and every instance like NA105 is a cluster, is an array of computers that do something called load balancing in order to fulfill the requests. Most programming languages are processed through a compiler in order to create instructions executable by the computer. So when you save a program in Salesforce, you are actually compiling it so that those computers that are in your instance, they can actually execute those instructions. That sequence of actions acts on input data and presents output data, modified according to those actions. So the most used metaphor for computer programs are recipes. So if you're making a chocolate cake, say, you need some flour, some sugar. In this case, it's a chocolate cake, so you need cocoa powder, you need baking powder, baking soda, all those things. And the instructions are provided, such as preheat the oven, grease a tin, place all the ingredients except the water. So after you have the input, which are the ingredients, and you execute the instructions contained in the program, if nothing goes wrong, and if you don't burn the cake, this is what happens. You get a nice, delicious chocolate cake. All right? So how do we make programs in Salesforce? And this is where the programming language comes in handy. So you write programs in the Apex language, which is a dialect, a variant of Java. The syntax is very similar. So for those 18 people who have replied that they have already programmed in Java, it's going to be a walk in the park because the syntax is very similar. It's also object-oriented. I'm not going into many details, but you see that Salesforce has the objects you create. These are objects here in the programming language also. And differently from Java, the database support is built into the database. So you don't need to worry about JDBC and JDBC drivers and opening and closing the connection. This is all inbuilt to the language. You don't need to worry about it. The programs are organized into classes, which have methods and variables. Methods are sets of instructions to be executed, and variables are data. So Salesforce objects are also classes. And optionally, methods may have arguments, which are inputs, and return, which is an output. So you can see that in blue here, you have string name. This is input. And return message is the output of the build message method. If no return is going to be provided, such as in the second method here, do hello world, the return type must be stated as void. This is mandatory. In order to write a program, you need another program, which is called an IDE, an integrated development environment. Salesforce has one built in. It doesn't require installation or setup or anything like this. You just have to go click and use it. Let me share my screen with you so you can see what I'm talking about. So you'll probably be able to see my screen now, which is the same as the television right behind me. Let me also pull up my Salesforce instance here. So here's my Salesforce instance. You can see that there's a setup here. So you just click the gear icon and developer console, and this window is going to show up. Let me close these ones here, this one, and this one. These are examples we're going to use afterwards. Let's go back to our presentation. So at the top of the developer console, you have the menu bar, which contains commands for doing useful things within the IDE. You have the main content area, which you have seen that holds code, or when you're executing a SQL query, it gives you the result set. It displays the result set for you. Beneath it, you have the bottom panel tabs, which provide some other useful tools in order for you to work. And it's also collapsible, so you can use this tiny button in the right area to bring it down. When creating a new class, So first thing you do is clicking File here, New Apex class. You need to give a name to your new Apex class. Let's say Hello World. And you click OK. Since I already have this class here, I'm going to cancel. I'm just going to open it here. And let me give you the link for the class so you can download it. You can copy and paste it into your, so it's in the chat for everyone here. You can just click it and you'll see the code that's being displayed on the screen. So some words on syntax. So how does the computer expect you to write a program? First of all, is that blocks of code are delimited by curly braces, which are shown in red. So you can see that public class, hello world, and there's a curly brace. And when this class ends, there's a matching right-hand curly brace here at the bottom. Each command given to the computer is finished with a semicolon. You can see them in green here. So every time you have finished typing a command, you need to type the semicolon. But if you haven't yet, if you want to break a command into 2 or 3 lines for readability, you can just press enter or return and finish it in the bottom line, and then you put the semicolon. Variable attribution. So when you want to set a variable with some data, you use a single equal sign. So you have here message equals hello plus name. Apex uses dot syntax such as class name dot method name. So class names usually begin with capital letters. Methods and variables start with lowercase letters. This is just a convention, but it's almost universally used. So you better stick to that. There's nothing that actually enforces doing it, but it's highly recommendable because that's what everybody has been doing for the last 25 years writing Java. So that's what everybody does. Arguments, which are the inputs, must be placed between parentheses. So you have here public static string message, parenthesis, string name, which is the declaration of the input. Or like you have here, system.debug and arguments placed between parentheses. Strings are delimited by single quotation marks. If you try to surround it by double quotation marks, they're not going to be accepted. The compiler is going to throw you an error. And lines that start with 2 forward slashes are comments. We're going into that later. They're not read by the computer. We're going to talk about this in a few moments. So let's run our program. You probably have a developer edition org or a Salesforce playground, which you can fiddle around with. So you can just open the developer console there and just paste this class and let's run it. Here's my mouse. Here's my mouse. So I have pasted the program here. I have saved it. When you are yet to save something, an asterisk appears at the tab. So an asterisk appears here at the tab. You just have to click save or press Control S or Command S if you're using a Macintosh. And to run this code, we're going into debug, open execute anonymous window, and I'm doing hello world dot do hello world, and I'm placing my name within single quotes here. You leave the open log option here checked and click execute. So now Salesforce is executing your code. It's going to open up the execution log. So this dissects everything that Salesforce is doing. We're going to click the debug only in order to see our message. So here is hello, Louis. Yeah, that's what this slide is all about. So what was done here? First, we instructed Salesforce to run the doHelloWorld method into the Hello World class with the argument Louis. So when you say hello world dot do hello world, so look into the hello world class for the do hello world method with this argument. The argument to be expected is stated into the declaration of the method, which is its header line. It is shown here in yellow. So this is the declaration statement. So it's a public method. It's visible everywhere. It is static. We're going to talk about this in the third session. Void because it doesn't have a return. Do hello world is its name, and between parentheses is the argument that is expected, which is a string named name. To build the output message, this method calls another method called build message, which is here in pink, in pale pink, and is this this method that is seen above the method that's being executed. So this is the method build message. So the method takes its argument, declares a second variable named message, concatenates the string hello with the argument, which is here the variable name, and then returns this message, which is the concatenated string. When we nest two method calls, such as the blue here, so you have a call to the build message inside a call to the debug method. So the inner method is called first with these arguments, and the return from this is passed along to the system debug method. So what it does is printing out a message into the debug log, which it shows that line you have seen into the developer console. So let's talk about variable types. You have already seen string, which is a text. First is integer. It's an integer number with no decimal places, so you can have 1, 2, 3, 1,000, 1 million, but you cannot have 1.2, 1.3. It's just integers. Some people write just int, but declaring as integer offers you a little more flexibility, so you can have some some methods that are called. But this is, you have to look into the documentation. I'm not going into further detail about it. Next is a double, which is a decimal number. Why double? It's because it's a floating point. It's a double precision floating point number. Floating point is computerese for decimal. String is, as I said, is a piece of text. It might be a single line of text or multiple lines of text. String is a class, so that's why the name is written with a capital first letter. And the strings, as I said previously, must be surrounded by single quotation marks. Next is Boolean, which is a checkbox value. It's either true, checked, or false, unchecked. Here are date, time, and datetime. They're kind of obvious on their function, so it's dates, times, and dates, of course. Datetime combines both into a single variable, and providing values for date, time, and dating time is not straightforward. You need to do date.newInstance or time.newInstance, and there are the arguments which you must enter as integers. Collection variables hold multiple data of a certain type. So when you want to do, when you want to have multiple strings or multiple objects, you declare it as a collection. They're often used with iteration structures, which we're going to see next week, and each iteration usually works on one data point. The simplest of the collection variable types are arrays. They are declared with square braces. So you can see in red here, string with square brackets equals new string. And there's the fixed size, which is stated when you declare the array. So you have a string with 3 places. The indexes are 0 based. So the first element is index 0. Here, names 0 equals foo. And the last element is size minus 1. So here is names 2. If you try names 3, it's going to give you list index out of bounds exception. The next 2 types are lists and sets. Both have dynamic size. They can have elements added or removed at any time. But the difference is that lists allow for duplicate items. So you can have the same string multiple times. And the sets do not allow duplicates. And they're often used for object IDs in order to pass them to a query. If you have written Java before, this is very similar, at least conceptually, to an array an array list. But this is inbuilt, you don't have to import or do anything else. And the last collection of variables are maps. They combine a set of keys and an associated value. It's just like if you were doing a lookup table in Excel and putting a new value into a key that already exists, override that key's value. So the keys act like a set, so you cannot have duplicate keys. So when you're placing the new value, you state put key and then the value. When you remove, you just need to state the key. Same goes for when retrieving the value from the map. And if you try putting another value, it's going to retrieve the latest value you have placed into that map, into that key. The language also provides you with basic mathematical operators such as plus, minus, times, which is the asterisk, and the forward slash, which is a division. They work for both integers and doubles. You can also have variable plus plus, which increases the variable's value by 1, and variable minus minus decreases its value by 1. But those operations do not work for daytime or datetime because they have methods that are specific for that task. You'll need to do to look at the Salesforce documentation, which is quite complete, as you know, to look at the syntax. The plus operator also allows for concatenating strings. So you can see here, string 1, string foo, string another string bar. When you concatenate one string plus another string, it joins those strings. Be careful. When you're trying to concatenate first name and last name for doing the full name of a person, you'll see that concatenation itself does not provide you with a space. So you have to do first name plus a string with just a space plus last name. We have talked about comments. I think this is very important to look here. So first, how to place comments in your code. Single line comments start with 2 slashes, such as the first example here. So this is a single line comment. When you press return or enter, the next line is already active. You don't have to do anything else. Single line comments may also be made at the end of an active line. So everything that comes after the 2 slashes is not active, but everything that comes before them is active. So this is the second example here with an end of line comment. What's before the slashes are still interpreted. You can also make longer multiple line comments. using first a forward slash and an asterisk, and ending by an asterisk, then a forward slash. And this is useful for disabled chunks of code, like you want to disable a whole method, or you want to write a longer comment. Instead of prepending all lines with 2 forward slashes, you can use a multi-line comment for quickly deactivating those lines. And why are comments so important? First thing is that your code may stay up in production for many, many years. When I worked at one of my previous companies, I had a boss who wrote ABAP on SAP, the ERP platform. It was code that she had written in like 2000, 2001, 2002. We were in 2014, 2015, and that same code was still running. So who knows for how many years your code may stay in production. And other people will need to understand what you were thinking at the time, or maybe even yourself. I'm one of those guys that usually forget what I've eaten yesterday for lunch. So I for one, I usually place a lot of comments in my code because I may not remember what I've done. Conversely, you probably will need to understand other people's code as well, because in many projects, you're not going to be the only developer. There are going to be several other developers, and it's a courtesy to them place comments into your code. Reverse engineering is frustrating and time-consuming. So comments provide a way to explain in a human-readable way, the intents of your code. When you need to debug a program or do some corrections or a bug fix or anything like this, instead of looking at throughout the whole code and recreating in your head what the original programmer had in their mind, the comments decrease the time that need for debugging, because you have stated there in your face what the programmer meant to do. And the comments can also be used to describe modifications done to the code, such as bug fixes and any other change requests. And you can place like a Jira or a TFS ticket number there in order to provide you with a paper trail of what was requested and what's actually being done here. All right, so that's all for today. So what we've seen here, first, what's a program? The basics of the Apex language, such as syntax, variable types, collection variables, all that stuff. We have done a quick look at the developer console and how to execute arbitrary pieces of code and how to make comments in your code. For next week, we're going to have selection structures and iteration structures, which are basic stuff that you need to know to actually make a program. We're going to have a quick primer on SQL queries and including aggregate queries, and how to do database operations. So how to operate, how to do stuff with existing data into Salesforce objects in your code. All right, so yeah, I think that's all for the moment. Thank you once again for your attendance. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Kate, for giving me the opportunity, and thank you, everyone. Thanks for all of our colleagues at Ascendix, which are also attending this session, everybody else also. So please feel free to register to our upcoming session, and see you guys next week.